after looking at all my charts and everything from literally from head all the way down to my right foot, he thought I should have been a vegetable. What does that mean? Okay, I'm glad you asked. So that means
Hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Red Alert Diaries with Tanya E. Hood. Today, we have a special guest joining us, Kijuan Amy. Hey, Kijuan, glad that you're here.
Hey, how you doing, Tanya?
Thank you so much for being here. But before we begin, I have got to introduce you to everyone. Now, for those of you that have not yet had the opportunity, you are in for a treat today. Kijuan has served as the Vice President of the Carolina Region Group of the Blinded Veterans Association and is a dedicated mentor and ambassador for the Air Force Wounded Warriors Program. Kijuan, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we have a lot to unpack. Then, if it wasn't for what we're going to be talking about, which is my motorcycle accident, you guys wouldn't be hearing me speak. I'm going to tell you right now, I did not want to be a speaker by any means of the imagination because that wasn't my light. I didn't think that was my light at all. Now, Tanya, you can see behind me, I have drums and a piano. That music is my life. And that was the performance that I would give you. And I'll give you that till today. I still love playing the drums, and I still do. I've been playing since I was 7, and I'm now 33. And so trust me, when I tell you these 26 years of experience are giving me joy, they are giving me joy because I love it. It's one of those things that I grew up beating on everything. And I got in a little bit of trouble for it too. So when your mom come home and she's ready to cook and you got all the pots and pans in your room, that's when you got a problem. So yeah, I love that, and I eventually grew into sports as well. I started out non-traditional sports, as they call it, but or your uncommon, which is bowling. That's what I started out doing at the age of 5, and did that into my teenage years. And then, once I got into the middle school realm where I could play football and run track without having to pay for it, that's when I started doing it because my mom and, my dad, my dad really wanted me to play when I was young. He wanted me to play Pee Wee ball, but my grandmother and my mom, they weren't really into it because I wasn't the biggest. My oldest brother, he was bigger than me, like as far as, size wise, and he still is. He just has different genes. We have different dads. And so anyway, when I was able to become, of age to play those sports without having to pay for it, I did. I chose that route, and so ran track and played football in middle school and high school. And man, did I love football. I mean, don't get me wrong, track was cool, but it seemed like it was more of a chore to me than football was. I did not mind working out or running on that field when it came to football. And so when it came to track, I felt like everybody was watching and I didn't want to be watched that hard. And so it's one of those things, a give and take moment. And then, in the military, when I got to the military, I had to run track because I had to now do it for a PT test, our fitness test. And so at that point in time, you're being watched then too, because they're timing you. Don't get me wrong, the push-ups and sit-ups, the waist measurement, that was a cakewalk. I only weighed like 185 pounds. That was a cakewalk. So I got through that with no problem. And I was like 6'1" at the time. So that was too easy for me. But running, it was always a chore running long distance. Short distance, I have no problem. I have no problem with that. I'm a sprinter at heart. And so anyway, the thing that I will say that I miss right now the most, though, is the Air Force experience of what my job was. And that's in-flight refueling.
Well, let's pause right there
Yeah.
because you shared a lot and you have gone through a lot. You one of them kids. Yeah. I would have been that mom be like, why put them back right now?
Listen, she come home, she ready to cook, and she's like, where's my Kijuan?
Uh,
Already knew. Look, she already knew where they were. It wasn't like they were stolen. No, ain't nobody come steal them. I had them, okay? and,
indeed, indeed.
and I'm like, so not only that, I told you guys I bowled, right? So now I have bowling trophies and stuff, and and what they will have is like a pin on the bowling trophy. So the shape of a pin, you got that, wide spot, and then the neck of the pin, and then the big base of it. Okay. So if you remember what DVDs and video games back then look like, and they still have them. Some of them are more streamed now, or you download them. But anyway, I used to put those on the pins and make those my symbols. So when I tell y'all I had a whole setup, this is not like just something I'm making up, okay? This is legit. I've been this way since I was a child, okay? And music is a passion of mine, not just a hobby. So if you even give me an inkling that I can play for somewhere, somebody, hey, hand me the sticks. Where we at? What we got? What's on the list?
Well, you've already shared a lot, and you're walk into a story about some elements of your reset. Tell us a little bit more about how you reset.
Well, I had to reset by first rethinking what I was going to do next. I have a speech that I titled "What's Next for Me," and it can go many different ways, but in this particular aspect, it was what was literally next for me, because at the time of my motorcycle accident, I was in the Air Force Reserves, in flight refueling, like I told you guys already. I was going to college full time to study computer information systems with a specialization in systems analysis and integration. And then I also had my own business all at the same time now. And that business was called Kiwi Enterprise, where I focused on website design and management, social media marketing, and photography for small businesses and those alike. Now, all three of these things I'm doing at one time. And not just doing them, I'm doing them at a high level. I had, of course, I was a staff sergeant in the Air Force, but I also was an instructor. So I taught my job. Then with the schooling, I was a senior at the time, and I had a 3.87 GPA, making the dean's list every time I got a chance. So every time I got my grades, I was on the dean's list as well. So it wasn't just like I was like, oh, making my way through college, I got to get me a degree. No. I was doing very well. And then my business was starting to bloom. I had just started it that same year of my accident, January 3rd, 2017, and my accident was May 5th. So it was short-lived, but it was starting to bloom. I was having clients coming up to me and, getting good returns. So yes, I might have had a lot of things going on. This is while music is still going. This is while football. I'm still playing football at this point. I was playing semi-pro. And I mean, listen, when I tell you I was doing some of everything and still doing this, everything else at a high level, like this is not just I'm making it through. No, I can't halfway do anything. So when I tell people you have to be either all the way in or don't do it at all. Like there's no point for you to do something if you're going to halfway do something, because you're going to mess it up. I promise. You're going to mess something up and it's going to come back and bite you. And so I do everything wholeheartedly. Now it might put a lot of strain on you because I did have some long nights. There was some 3 a.m. mornings, okay? And that's not just the business side. It could be either business or school. I'm up at 3 a.m. trying to get things done. But I did, however, get them accomplished. And it was because I knew that only for a little while I would be doing it that way. And so
Let's
what I'm
pause
getting
there
at.
and unpack
Oh,
that
okay.
because
Yeah, go ahead.
there's some nuggets in what you just shared that I don't think a lot of people paid attention to.
Hmm.
You had a lot of things going on, and in this day and age, in the social media realm, where everybody's got all this, that, and the other going on.
Yeah.
First, you were focused. That's something that we have to pay attention to because not enough people are focused on what needs to be done. So they're scattered and they're losing track of time. The second thing that you shared, and I'm so glad that you shared it, is that you had a clear time frame of what was happening in the midst of that. Let me ask you this question because this is the piece that I think is key that I want to make certain comes across. When we have a task that we're putting together, an action step that we're taking, it takes an element of us being clear about our identity. You knew who you were in order for you to get that done. Unpack that piece just a little bit more because when people are doing different things, they don't seem to pay enough attention to the fact that it's tied to who you are at the core of your being.
Yeah, no, trust me. Even as a child, I was always wanting to have the best grades, the best progress reports, the best report cards, all these different things because I knew what was coming if I didn't. I was brought up in that kind of household. I knew what was coming if I did not because there was no reason I shouldn't have. You didn't go outside until things were done. So I took that to when I got older. I didn't get, I wasn't out doing all this, partying and drinking and having too much fun until my work was done, until my business side of it was done. I've literally told my crew, where were we at? We were in Utah one time when I was in the reserves, and I knew I had work to get done, both school and my business. And they were like, "Hey man, we're gonna go skiing. You want to come?" I was like, "We just did that in New Mexico. I'm not doing it again in Utah on the same trip." So I said, "Nah, I'm a pass." And I did it in a manner of, no, I still got things to do. I gave them the exact reasons. I'm not just saying, "Nah, y'all going. I ain't got no money." No, I didn't do that. I said, "Listen, hey guys, I gotta do some work. Actually, I got school work to do, and then I also have, my bit." People understand when you have priorities, and when you actually set aside boundaries for those. But people don't understand when you just out here BSing, and then they figure out, well, man, I thought he was a pretty good guy when it came to doing stuff, but not if you don't put the boundaries around it. And so I set my boundaries around my schoolwork and my business. When I knew I had a short timeline or a timeline to get something done, I made sure that I got it done.
Let's
I don't like to.
pause
I don't
because
like to. Hold
boundary.
on. I gotta say this. I
Okay.
didn't like turning anything in late. I like to be early. so, so that was one thing I wanted to say.
And I'm glad that you're sharing that because that goes into this. When you set those boundaries were set because you used your core values as an inner element to guide you where you were doing. Help other individuals discover when we're dealing with things because our identity, lots of times, is tied up in the people around us. You kept your identity in you and centered them on your inner values. Help people get a little more understanding about how you were able to do that and what they can do to possibly set themselves up for that as well.
Yeah, I mentioned what my childhood was like, but I also have to preface by saying the Air Force gave me some amazing core values. Hey, listen, yeah, there's the Navy, the Army, and the Marines, the Coast Guard. Cool, y'all are out there, but I'm gonna tell y'all, our core values are, I mean, the dopest to me. So ours is integrity, service before self, and excellence in all you do. Now, if I were, yes, imply that when in my Air Force career, that's awesome. But I use that in my life as well. I had my own integrity. I was doing what I had to do. And even when nobody was watching, I had service before self in my business. I did the service before before I put things before myself, the whole party and all that stuff. No, no, no. I need to knock this business stuff out first because that's going to allow me to do self. And then excellence in everything I did. I told you about my GPA and making the dean's list. I told you my business was starting to flourish. And then how I was an instructor in the in-flight refueling career field. And trust me, everybody was asking for Kiwi. Where's Kiwi? Can Kiwi do this for me? Is it okay? Like I had a guy, he was trying to he was trying to close on his house. And the time frame of which it was going to happen, he was supposed to be going on a trip to England for 2 weeks. Well, he was like, hey man, I saw your name was on that list for, boom operators to go. Do you mind taking this trip for me? And I was like, well, why you can't go? And he was like, honestly, that's when we're going to be trying to close on our house. I said, oh, dude, I'll take that. I'll let you do what you got to do. Because two things, that was service before self. And I gave him the fact that his wife was pregnant at the time too. So it took a load off of her because he was still there. So yeah, these are the things that I put also in myself, not just due to the Air Force.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's the values that we pick up in those arenas, be it home or in the workforce. I often share with my clients how you show up personally does impact what you do professionally and vice versa. Let me ask you this question, because you have a powerful testimony that you've used to help those around you. And we see how your heart to serve showed up with your coworker. Tell us more about who you serve and the impact you want to ensure that you leave.
Yeah. So if you go visit my website, amymotivation.com, you'll understand the vision that I have. And it's basically to empower and impact people who really feel like just because something traumatic or overwhelming, it might seem overwhelming anyway, has hit you, that's not the end of you. That could literally be the beginning of a new you. Now you're going out and I'm not saying that your life is going to be completely different or you're somebody brand new. What I'm saying is it's now trying to rebuild. I'm rebuilding. I mean, it's been almost 8 years now. It's been 8 years now. So I'm rebuilding in what I call the new life journey of me. And when I tell people about my story, first off, they can't believe I'm still here. There are doctors who still can't believe I'm still here. So I know people that I just talked to can't believe it. When I talked to the actual doctor who did my spinal cord surgery, he, as a follow-up appointment, and this was after I was discharged from the hospital, not while I was still in, he was like, he walked into that room and he would have thought he saw a ghost. Because he's like,
I was definitely in the middle of the 3 C's. There comes a time when you will have to decide if you need clarification, connection, or closure about a person to determine how to move forward in the relationship. Some relationships need connecting. Some relationships need clarifying. You will need to take the time to determine what the relationship should be in order for it to be beneficial for both of you. I took the time to write down some things that I think will support you. The free chapter is available for you in the link below.
He's like, wow. And I was like, what happened? And my mom was in the room too. So I was like, what happened? So I looked at her and she's like, And so he says, I didn't expect you to be sitting up on that bed. I was like, well, what did you expect? I really didn't know what to say. I was like, well, what did you expect? He was like, I kind of expected you to be in a wheelchair. And I was like, oh, I get it. You thought I would have still been weak. You thought I would have still been down and not moving as much. I got it. I said, you know what? Let me do you one better. And he said, what's that? I said, you want me to stand up for you? He was like, yeah, sure. And so I stood up and I said,
Put the Superman pose on.
I stuck my chest out and everything. I even go front. And he was like, wow. And
Unpack that a little bit more, because That piece right there, I don't think enough people are really clear about the background because it took stuff that you did in the background in order for you to make a decision. Yes, I've gone through something traumatic in my life, but in this moment, right here, right now, I have a different determination. Tell us a little bit more about what you thought, because in your mind's eye, it was just normal. I'm going to walk again. I'm going to do all the things that I intended to do again, but that's not how people typically think. Tell us a little more like that.
It was to show that doctor that, yes, you might have done the surgery, but who had the healing hands? Because he couldn't heal me. That's what he wasn't understanding. He was just like, his mind was stuck on the medical side of it. I am a faith believer. So I know a little bit more about this thing. I know who really healed me. Because all you did was cut me and put some rods in my back and some screws in there and said, ooh, I hope this works. That's so literally verbatim. I have to say this because this is verbatim out of his mouth. I wish I had his name. Anyway, he said, I was just doing your surgery for protocol. Now, for those who don't know what that means, let me tell you a little bit about it. It means they're just doing it hoping you'll live. That's it. That's all it means. They don't know what's going to come of it. They don't know the real true percentages. And that's how these things, and this is why I kind of dislike the word practice medicine, but that's how these things happen. And so when I saw every doctor, every physical therapist, every person after my accident, and they were just like, I've wowed two people that I know for sure. And one of them was a physical therapist, and then the other one was that spinal cord doctor I told you about. The physical therapist, same situation, but he thought I should have, after looking at all my charts and everything from literally from head all the way down to my right foot, he thought I should have been a vegetable. What does that mean? Okay, I'm glad you asked. So that means I should be, either somebody should be feeding me and telling me what's going on or helping me understand what's going on, not me thinking for myself. I'm having to have my food in blenders. That's what that means. And the fact that I stood up in front of him when he called my name out in that waiting room. And he was like, again, another wow. I don't know what this wow thing means. I got to figure out what the acronym wow means. Because it's got to mean
wondering
something.
over what they did.
Exactly, because both of them said wow. And I'll never forget it. And, so it's just one of those moments. And I always look around like, what happened? And somebody's like, oh, no, he's looking at you. I guess he's surprised. And I was like, well, I mean, what can I say? I work hard. And at that time, I still remember walking at that point, because I did have to learn how to walk again. I still remember walking into that facility at it was a UNC clinic. And for those who don't know what UNC is, that's the University of North Carolina. And so I was walking into that UNC clinic, and it was difficult just walking to get there. And we were in a handicapped spot. It was difficult. So the handicapped spots are very close. Everybody knows how close they are to the buildings. It was difficult. And every time we got to that hill, it's a slight little ramp. I knew it because I'm like, ooh, I got to lean forward now. Otherwise, I'm not going to make it up this hill. I remember those days.
Thank you so much for sharing that part of your story.
Mm-hmm.
Because too many times we don't understand the pieces that happen in the background, which is why I asked that you unpack that. But there's something else. As a living testimony, you have poured out more of yourself into your book that you've written. Mm-hmm. Don't focus on why me. Can you tell us a little more about your book?
Now, if you really want to know what happened to me,
that's
what you want. This is what you want. You want the book, because the book is kind of it's tied together of the things that people were telling me, what I did that day of the accident, May 5th, 2017, and a little bit before, just a little bit, just to give you kind of insight of what I was doing before my accident. Um, and then after that, it hits you just like I was hit. So then it goes into the first chapter after, May 5th, 2017, because that's the actual chapter. The chapter is called The Accident. And I tell you all everything that happened from what I've heard and what the police report says. And then I go into waking up, I believe is after that. Because I was on a medically induced coma for a month and a day. So from May 5th till June the 6th, 2017, I know nothing. I couldn't tell you what happened. Couldn't even tell you if somebody brought me a Slurpee because I wouldn't have been able to drink it anyway. It was just one of those things. And I just go through the whole gambit of what happened to me. And my purpose of the book was to be, yes, I was to tell you the story, but it was to be vulnerable while telling this story. Because in the military, they don't teach you that. They don't teach you to be vulnerable. All they're teaching you to do is suck it up, buttercup. That's a phrase from the military. Suck it up, buttercup. Meaning we got things to do, let's go. So when I tell you I'm trying to be vulnerable, trying to give people insight, hey, listen, go get your tissues. I'm just telling you right now. If you cry at movies, you're going to cry reading this book. So, and it's one of those ones that is such a short, I guess you could say short read. It's a pretty quick read that you won't want to put it down because you'll be like, holy crap, what's next? And then when you see that title of the next chapter, you'll be like, ooh, this is interesting. They're intriguing titles as well. I thank God that I came up with them, and they were very nice chapters. And I did it a little different than most books. I don't think I've ever read a book like this, but this book is kind of like, it's almost like a play off of the military. So what I did was when I was in boot camp, you had to write letters. Also, maybe if you're in a deployed environment that didn't have, the capability of just calling somebody on any given moment, you wrote letters. And so that's kind of what I did. To the reader, I wrote letters. So I start the chapter out, dear reader, and I end it with I think it's sincerely Kiwi. Yeah, I think it's sincerely Kiwi. So yeah, I wrote letters in each chapter, and I also give lessons as well to each chapter, not just one, not just two, but to each one of them. I think it's like 17 or 18 chapters.
That's impactful. And I love the personalization that you put in there because in this day and age, we forget that being personal and vulnerable shows how human we are.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's another piece, the healing element.
Mm-hmm.
When you are an individual that puts your life in print for the world to see, while you're writing that thing out, there's also another level of healing.
Yes, exactly.
So I appreciate you and thank you so much for sharing that. You've also, for those of you that are watching, as a gift to the audience today, he has some information that he often shares on his Instagram channel. Kijuan, you want to share a little bit more about that gift?
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not following me, you should be, because I've been tearing the podcast arena up. And it's just, wanting to share my story and tell the world, because I feel like my story is so impactful, so empowering that it needs to be heard. And so if you go follow me on any of my social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, but a lot of people are doing their collaboration reels on Instagram. So you'll find more of my little clips and snippets and true nuggets on Instagram. So I would definitely go to my Instagram. I'm sure Tanya will put the link in there, but it's just my first and last name is the handle. So Kijuan Amy, that's KIJUANAMEY. Trust me, you won't be sorry that you're listening to these reels because I'm dropping some true science.
Thank you so much, Kijuan. This has been an enjoyable conversation, and I'm thankful that you took the time to take this moment with us. Is there any last words that you want to share with the audience before we close out today?
Yeah, I would definitely like to say that when it came to my situation, a lot of people ask me how, I made it through, how I'm still able to do what I do. I told everybody, I had to learn how to walk, but yeah, I can get up and start running if I wanted to. So if something broke out, we go. But the reason I'm able to do that is because I never gave up. So for anybody out there struggling in life, because we all dealing with something, but if anybody's struggling, going through adversity, hardship, whatever it is you're going through, never give up. Because that's what, the enemy wants you to do. He wants you to give up. That's the whole purpose of him. And so my goal in life and for you is that we never give up and we keep fighting together.
Thank you for that. And we have to be reminded often not to give up, especially in a world that often makes us believe that if you're not running 1,000 miles an hour, you got all of these things that you're not fully functioning. I appreciate you and the story that you shared of your life continuing to empower us along the way. We need individuals like you to help us get an idea about how to reset. Now, for those of you that want to reach out to him for speaking engagements and the various things that he's supporting, go to his website, amymotivation.com. You can see that information is scrolling down below. And so for today, if you don't remember anything else that is shared, we want you to know that you can reset, be empowered to know who you are with all the various information that Kijuan has gave you, all those quick touch points, so that you can know that in this day and age, no matter what's happening in your world, if you find yourself in travesty, you can overcome, you can reset, and it's time to do so. So if anything that you have seen, like, comment, and share this information with others, and make certain that you let individuals know on all the various social media platform pieces where you can find Kijuan Amy. And if you want someone to join you on the journey, feel free to go to my website, TanyaEhood.com. There you can click on the Work With Me tab and see the various ways that we can work with one another. In the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood walking in my purpose, and I want you to do the same.